listening to the Adventure Party for the 4th week of March 2023. This week, look at our unique podcast. We're so original. What do you mean we don't fit on your internet? The Adventure Party, discussing tabletop and radio gaming the Irish way. Welcome to the party. I'm a sentient pal of eyes called Shane.
I'm Dave. Who's there?
I'm an increasingly hairy mass. It happens. You get into your late 30s and hair just spreads everywhere. My name's Liam.
Dave, why are you playing an ordinary human in our campaign? Like, clearly we have the entire book of impossible shapes to mine for character ideas, and you're just playing a boring old human?
I was under the impression we were going for a low-level fantasy game here. Maybe I was looking at the wrong email.
So, folks, we're here to discuss when you make up your party of adventuring do-gooders, they don't quite fit into the milieu that your GM has crafted for you, where you have an awful lot of hairy peasant humans who or human kings or human nobles, and like it would be one thing if there was a couple of elves in the party, but then how many different types of elemental plane touched are there in Pathfinder again?
I mean, even just there's one for each of the kind of big elements. Like you got your Oreads, your Freety. You got 4 for the big ones, but then there's all sorts of like offshoots. I think, isn't there?
Yeah, there's like I remember 3.5. I'm pretty sure had the para elemental, and there was plane touch for them. And then there was all the alignment plane touch. It goes on like this. So you can end up in the situation in the game, particularly if it's something like Pathfinder or 3.5, where every supplement adds a race or two to the mix, and they all have to have their own cool set of abilities or subclasses or level substitutions or feats, and it goes on like this. And certainly as things goes on, you find that people are so eager to play these weird and wacky archetypes that you end up with an entire group which has no relationship to the setting as written. And is this a problem with the players, or is it a problem with the settings? I guess is the first question.
I think it's a shared problem of GM and players not getting on the same page to begin with. Say not every fantasy game, for example, is going to have the same assumptions. I mean, there's a bit of a divide between kind of sword and sorcery settings where the heroes are vagabonds who are just running into misadventures and stealing the jewel of Amon-Ra, versus a high fantasy setting where you're building up to an absolutely climactic epic confrontation and will have the power to match.
And yeah, it's like you're fighting like the literal god of all evil dragons, in a battle for the multiverse. And actually, there's a certain point at which, if you are like fighting a dragon god, the fact that you are all playing random humans from the town of Bibbly Bob might make it sound a little weird.
To a degree, it can be people fishing for powers and stuff, and that's really why they're going for it. It can be a character thing, but like how often do you want to make every interaction is like, oh, you're such and such, you're this type of guy. Okay, cool. I've never seen an Oread before, and then the next time you're in, they've never seen an Oread before, and then the next time you're in, it's they've never seen an Oread before. I guess it's like talking to friends who living in Ireland for the past 10, 15, 20 years in some cases, and they still get the question of where are you from when you get in a taxi. It gets pretty tiring pretty quickly. And I think when you're running a campaign, you can get that same thing where it's like either everybody in the world just ignores this, or every interaction that the PC has is like, oh, so you're an Oread, eh? And multiply that by 4 if the 4 or 5 or 6 if the entire party are going for a different class.
There's a certain appeal to trying something unusual, like an unusual class or unusual species or some combination, but how does the world respond to that? And I mean, if you're in a incredibly cosmopolitan setting, let's say one of the more cosmopolitan settings, Sigil, in many versions of D&D and Planescape, literally anything could be passing by. You could have devils and angels wandering by in their business, all sorts of extraplanar creatures, humanoids from any number of material planes, and yeah, no one's going to blink an eye unless they're very new to the city.
Oh, if you're very new to the city, then you're a Burke and you're to be hustled and rubed out of the whole thing. It's the point where maybe you'll just, dress up as a plain touch just so that you don't stand out as much.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that's a bit of an extreme example. I suppose the other end of the scale, if you've a world which is say all human, and your characters are from say that one of these other planes, and you are the only examples of your kind that have ever shown up on this world, then you could be incredibly famous for or infamous for, well, which might be a good thing, might not be a good thing.
Like, if it was planned, if like the literal concept of the campaign where this random plane of smelly humans needs aliens to come down to save them, or people from another dimension to hop through and fix their human problems, that's fine as a campaign concept. I think the issue is when this is sort of dropped on a poor GM who is like, he's just picked out a random campaign setting and a random adventure path where it just so happens that every NPC is a human and every authority figure is a human, because the writers weren't like thinking too hard about it and just assumed sort of like, there's a couple of elves in the forest, and then the GM is assaulted with these bespoke characters of various supplement worthy races, and just like, okay, so the most normal person in the party is an orc, and the entire scenario is about how orcs have destroyed all the villages.
So you either ignore it, or as a GM, you have to say no. Because otherwise, your entire campaign is about every interaction. Oh, quick, get the guard. Oh, look, get the city watch. Quick, there's an orc. And every interaction is about that.
Yeah.
Or as a GM, you ignore it, and what the PC's playing does not matter.
Neither's great. Like you
Yeah, I know
could.
they're terrible options. But it's either that or you just occasionally bring it up as a bit of story. That's about it. And it's also like, I guess when you're going for all these different things, like how much do you want racism to be a part of your game? Like I'm running through a Ruffin campaign, and okay, all my PCs bar one are are human, and the one player is a halfling, and occasionally there's a comment about a peck or bloody thieving halflings and stuff. But it's thrown in the odd time. But if every player is some weird fancy race, like, do you want racism to be a part of your campaign? And chances are most people will say no. Aside from that, the odd bit here and there of like, halflings.
Yeah. I mean, the more well realized a setting you have, the easier this can work out. Are actually a pretty good example. This might actually be Wolfrup, because the Empire, it's so solidly human centric that it can just sort of go, oh, you're an ogre. Oh, you're one of those foreign types come over the hills or whatever. Sure, we'll get you a job at the docks, or, biting heads off or something.
Not if the Steve Doors Union have anything to do with that. That guy will put 10 guys out of work.
Yeah, so it's not racism, it's the union, it's the guilds that are the problem. But yeah, like, if you have a properly well realized setting, then you should have adjusted for this, and people will have figured out like what is the default reaction to elves, what's the default reaction to an ogre or a dwarf or whatever. And then also the options that are available will be also part of the setting. Like, I think the weirdest thing you can be in Wolfrup is like an ogre or a gnome, and like the gnome is just like, it's not that people are racist against you; it's that everyone thinks you're halfling.
Yeah, the gnomes and ogres are the strangest things you can play. And ogre, gnomes don't really exist per se. They had a settlement and it's mostly gone, so there's a remnant of them left. And an ogre, yeah, I mean, people are gonna run on terror from you all the time. But the option's there. But you still gotta get some players gonna turn around and be like, I want to play a Skaven, but like a good Skaven.
Is there such a thing in universe?
By good, I think it means not attack on sight, but yeah, it's I get the impulse, but like, they have tried doing playable Skaven, but not as part of a regular party. I'm pretty sure the option for being a Skaven is very much you're in an all Skaven party. Yeah, it was just like, again, it was putting the weirdness in context.
It's so the Ratcatchers Guild is one of the larger Discord servers for Wolfrup, and there's a section on there which is called Skaven Blight, and it's an odd mix of people who have pet rats and like posting pictures of their pet rats and cutesy drawings of their pet rats, and people who like love Skaven, and some have like anthropomorphic drawings of rat men and stuff with like love hearts and stuff. It's an odd mix.
Yeah. As a GM, you sort of are sort of forced into this situation where you either have to put in a lot of work or you have to start saying no to people. And those are not great options. But like there's sort of a question of like how much should again, this is one of those things where it's not a problem if you see the problem coming ahead of time. You can just easily say before you even pitch the campaign to people, it's just like saying, this game is going to be, humans are going to be very important in this game. All the political movement shakers are going to be these three noble families. Being an orc or an ogre is going to be a problem because it's, the orc and ogre warlords who are causing problems. If you see it coming, it's not a big thing. It's just like when you've picked like an adventure pass off the shelf and sat down and said, we'll go through this cool adventure with these three noble houses, and then in comes this gaggle of impossible people from other dimensions and such. It's just like, well, how do I put one into the other? And it's the surprise which is the problem, I guess.
Yeah, you can make an awful lot of things work, but to some degree of work. But yeah, like this really should be hashed out in before a campaign or in the archetypical session zero. Session zeros could be a lot of fun, by the way. Was that one recently? Making a party together.
Yeah.
I guess that's where you can set your tethers and be like, okay, right, well, this is the campaign, or this is kind of the general idea for the campaign. So here's your limits on what you can do. And then maybe someone can come up with a damn good reason why their plain touched character, their damn fear is there, But yeah, they'll have to do the hard work to get it in there, and the assumption is no. I mean, some games even go further than this. Like if you look at Warframe, class is a whole thing as well. Like
Yeah.
you literally have statuses, so the entire party is made up of people who have brass status, and then they need to go hobnobbing with the nobles. Well, if you're out of luck, not gonna happen. You're all brass status. Maybe I guess then maybe that's the challenge for the GM. They then need to make it about sneaking in as wait staff or something, rather than the noble getting an invite. It's a challenge, but that can be overcome. But I think and then you can ultimately move career with better statuses. Weirdo aliens is a little harder to overcome unless you want to start getting into different types of magic to mask things or change things.
How do you feel about methodologies for is it putting, for want of a better word, a party limit on weirdness? So it's just like saying there must be at least two humans and only one person can be from this supplement or one of these races, and the rest have to be, regular elves and dwarves and halflings.
I mean, that can work, but like, how do you decide that? Who gets their pick?
Yeah.
Like, how do you decide? Do you draw straws and, such and such gets it? I mean, if everybody's being reasonable, that's fine, and that's no problem.
Mm.
But, not everybody's reasonable all the time.
And I think a lot of groups will have that one person who never wants to play a regular human or anyone normal. Like the point of role playing is to be the weird person. And sometimes some groups will get the person who just wants to be, I would like to be a human fighter, please.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know that then insisting on playing that archetype, well, I just want to play the outsider and stuff, isn't so much playing a role, it's just playing a caricature.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that.
Because it's not about the character, it's about every conversation is as a, oh, look at me, I'm an Ifrit, and, I talk about this plane or whatever, but there's not much substance to the character, there's not much meat to the character. A lot of the time, it's just that they're just one aspect of a character.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's not wrong for someone to, want to be in that sort of headspace of I'm an outsider, look at me outside. Like, how much should it be adjusting the player party to fit, or versus how much should be adjusting your setting to fit? Like, yeah, maybe you did take this off the shelf setting, and it's just like, it seems to say that there's only humans can ever achieve anything in society, and also that all halflings are thieves. Same, just like you could throw this battle back in the PCs and make them play the setting, you could always also put in the work to rewrite the setting, change 20-30% of the random human nobles into, halfling wizards or plain touched clerics or what have you.
Well, here's the thing, like that is, yeah, you certainly do that, but I suppose it boils down to whether these other human, like non-human humanoids, are humans with funny hats or ears, or if they think and act differently. Because they think and act differently, even culturally, then replacing important figures with them is going to have effects in the game world.
Mm-hmm. True.
I mean, honestly, it's something which I think should be incorporated from the ground up. But, I mean, you can absolutely rewrite things. It's just, will it make sense if, you don't put a lot of work in?
I think the biggest one that always occurs to me is people pointing out that your random Dragonborn peasant in your random Dragonborn city is like basically someone walking around with a gun at all times because they can just breathe fire or lightning on you and just kill most people stone dead.
And I could grab a knife from my kitchen and go into a crowd and go and stab them.
Yeah.
But I don't. Like they have this ability doesn't mean that they're going to do it. Like every day people drive cars and they'll just randomly crash into people.
Yeah, very good point. Like, they're doing exactly as much murder and mayhem as they want to, which for most people is none.
Yeah.
It's just something like. Do we want to be enabling sort of like off the shelf gaming where people just sort of pick up their adventure and roll up whatever characters they feel are fun and just dive into the game? Because there's nothing wrong with that.
I think with that, then you have to go for the largely ignore it, except when you think it might be a bit of fun to let the character have a bit of a chat about their background or that they're a dragonborn or whatever. But largely, it's not every interaction goes. Jesus, look at your man.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I mean, ignoring a problem is viable for a game. You shouldn't ignore all problems in real life, but in a game, yeah, you can just sort of brush over it because the point is ultimately play, not deep ruminations on what the role of ogrekin in society is. But dissonance is still it's still one of those things that sort of goes in the back of your mind, and you sort of become aware. Oh, we're making a compromise here, and it's never bad. The deal breaker unless you're a very big stickler for this type of stuff. But this is one of those things that sort of sticks in the back of your head. This is like saying, this is a little bit weird. We're the Guardians of the Galaxy and we're helping, the cast of Rome solve their problems. And it's a little bit off. But I mean, ignoring it is a viable option.
Yeah, certainly.
I mean, the Guardian of the Galaxy tends to do it all the time as well. Like it's most of the time it's not a deal, except occasionally when somebody refers to Rocket Raccoon as a cat or something, and then it's a bit of humor. But people don't mention that Drax is an alien with, built like a brick wall. It's generally all that stuff doesn't come up. It's just the odd time it plays up for a bit of humor.
Yeah, and people might say that's sort of weird, but like a certain bit of cosmopolitan acceptance is like there is a baseline level of even your medieval peasant would sort of be like, you know, not to put upon things, but like, Middle Eastern and African traders would show up on the north coast of the Mediterranean all the time because trading was a thing, was a major economic activity. And it was the crossing cultures was slow, it was difficult, but like it did happen even in our extremely non alien having universe.
I mean, like a guy, but like to counterpoint that, I know a guy who used to game with his brother was living in Hong Kong, and his brother's like 6'6", very tall, and everywhere he goes, he gets looked at and stared at. I also know a guy who's teaching. He lives in rural. I say rural, like it's not. It's, by Chinese scale, it's rural. By Irish scales, it's quite cosmopolitan in the size of the city. But he lives in China, and he has the stereotypical, very pale, roaring red hair, and everywhere he goes, he gets stared at and talked about.
Yeah, stranger in a yeah, well, not quite stranger in a strange land levels, but yeah, I'd certainly imagine that.
And that's just those are quite tall in a place where people aren't that tall, and red hair where people generally don't have red hair. Now, imagine if your skin is made of rocks. and no one's ever seen anybody with skin made of rocks. Everywhere you go, people are going to be looking on. What's the rust with the rock guy? So again, I think you come back to you ignore it and play it up every now and again. That's it. Because I think for me the biggest thing is that players should really be kind of input on the narrative, influencing the narrative, but not dominating. That's for me the biggest thing, rather than breaking realism or any of this kind of stuff. For me, it's just no one player should have a total monopoly on the GM's time and the game narrative.
Right.
And for some people, that's why they want to play your and I'll use the dismissive term of it, snowflake character. My character is a very unique character.
Yeah, like I mean, having a very unique character is fine, but
Yeah.
you're still in a party, and presumably in a world where there are other characters as well.
I think ultimately for me, the issue is going to be again the party and their enablement of play. But I do think it is better to thought. The thing is, like, you can ignore it. You can, and it will work most of the time. There will be maybe a tiny bit of mental discomfort that you're sort of sandpapering over something that should be realistically, an issue. But I think we're back to the dragons and fireballs argument about realism again. Although, we could have an entire different conversation about, do peasants see dragons and fireballs very often? Maybe they don't. But that, again, I think you should probably be focusing on what's comfortable for the players and for play. And once you have your minimum level of quote unquote, realistic confusion over these characters. And as for like setting integration, I mean, does it take how long does it take to say that there's an enclave of Oreads, or in a certain city, or between the human village and halfling village of the mountain, there's a plant person village, in the Druid Combine or something like. I don't think it takes that much effort to just think about where different species or archetypes or levels of cyberware could work in your setting, or at the very least in your adventure that you have spent so much on. I think with a little bit of work, it's as long as you have warning ahead of time. I think is the main thing. It's just like, so as we so often say, that the answer may be talk to your players ahead of time and plan out. Session zeros are smart and fun.
Yeah, I mean, fair.
Any final thoughts, Liam?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I could keep talking about this because we haven't even delved into the Damphir or the half orc or the more troublesome
Mm,
of the alternate racial classes, I
yeah.
guess, where there's certainly implications of not what would you say? The union may not have been fully consensual, but I think that's probably best left where it is because it's a whole.
Yeah, that's a very much a topic that you need to, and I'm sure there's a lot of players that just want the stat bonus for the vampire and are perfectly happy having a loving vampire mom somewhere off in the world. It's all above board. It's just a cool backstory.
I mean, yeah, like in a lot of the things now, like it's certainly Pathfinder 2 we've seen a reform of the orc and the goblin, that they're no longer kind of assumed default evil. So there are good orcs out there and there are good goblins and stuff out there.
Yeah, there's an in-world explanation for that, though, because of goblins' shorter generations, so their cultural changes are a lot faster than even humans, which I thought was a neat spin on it.
Yeah, they were sick of dying in droves, and the
Yeah,
evil warlords got overthrown.
racial cultural things change all the time in the real world depending on all kinds of circumstances. And maybe those monster manuals were written by people who weren't the best intentions themselves, and just like maybe some orc or hag opens up Volo's guide and says, like, none of this is true. Who made this sort of stuff up?
Oh,
I guess there's also how many people we haven't even discussed it, but we're probably drawn to a close here anyway. But the overly done. I'm a drow, but I'm a good drow.
Yes, the armies of them across the various campaign worlds.
Has there ever been an evil PC drow? Maybe somewhere.
I guess that's more sort of a party versus like you're never playing in the like if you had every Forgotten Realms party in the world, then good drow would outnumber evil drow by 3 to 1. But we assume that the setting that you're running the game in is your setting. You may have gotten big chunks from a book, but ultimately you can't like point to the book and say, well, Carl Sargent said that you're going to face systemic racism, so clearly I have to make you suffer systemic racism, and it's just like no, I had no amount of having a book say it can take the responsibility off the GM. Ultimately, the GM has to run the game that they want, and the players have to work with that and come to compromise between each other GM and figure out if someone has to play the human for the plot to work. You can decide among yourselves whether you're doing that or you're changing the plot.
Yeah.
So we're going with the old, everybody be reasonable.
God, reasonable at a table. It could happen.
It is theoretically possible.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have any closing thoughts. I guess for me, it's just okay, as a PC, as a GM, yeah, try to be some more flexible like that. Having the random roving bands of traders or whatever. As a PC, be prepared to bend a bit as well, because how much are your choices really bending the narrative and stretching credulity? And sure, all else says you can just ignore it. Racism is the fun, and I don't like role playing it.
And if you do really, really want to have that species that gets the cool power where you turn the leaves or something, maybe could you just be some kind of weird kind of elf or someone who got cursed by a hag as a baby? You don't need to be
Collection of sentient insects.
I mean, maybe you're just had a very, very bad accident in your wizard training academy. Figure out whether it's the fluff or the outsider status, the fluff or the crunch that you're really looking for in your pack of weirdos, and maybe you'll come up with something cool in your session 0, which you should possibly have. But for now, we've proven our worth in our wonderful diversity, and I need to moisten all of my eyes. So I think we can call it to a close here and say that this party's over. Thanks for listening to The Adventuring Party. You can find show notes and links to things we've mentioned at www.theadventuringparty.net and on our Facebook page. You can leave comments there or talk to our Twitter account at AdventuringPTY, or you can record a voice message at www.speakpipe.com/theadventuringparty. We can also be contacted directly by email at party@theadventuringparty.net. If you'd like to be in touch with the party all the time, come join our Discord server, link in the show notes. The Adventuring Party was released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share Alike from Version 3 license.